That would help because, all right, because we're testing in production, I had muted our mic so we could talk while the countdown was going on. And forgot to unlock it. I gotta reset my, and this is another trick for anybody who's streaming, is when you're using the Elgato Stream Deck, instead of having just a switch scenes, I do a multitask and I do a switch scene and an unmute in the same under the same button. So if I forget to unmute it, it'll unmute it when I go to that scene.
Exactly.
But yes, I haven't had time to set it up properly, so right now it's just that.
Yeah, we're doing it in production.
We're testing it in production. Oh,
how you doing, sir?
I am busy as hell, but I'm doing great. You?
I've been super busy. I've been on a project for several months here, and it looks like it's going to be continuing until at least June, possibly. So at least I, got work to do. But there are times where I'm hitting my head on the wall because of the project. And this was one of those weeks.
I think we all have one of those weeks.
Oh yeah, it's been, but I think between myself and a few of the other people on the project, we're taking the bull by the horn and we're getting it fixed. So that's going to be the big thing.
Yeah, my week was been extra stressful, mostly due to our lovely pandemic. My wife, who is a teacher,
yes,
was in very close contact with one of her workmates, another teacher at her school. They've been having lunch together because she's the other person is like a teaching assistant, so they're in the same classroom, so they plan together. So they were having lunch. Of course, they take their masks and their shields off when they're having lunch. And he started coughing and blah, blah, blah. And she's like, you're sick. What the hell are you doing here? Oh, I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm okay. The school forced him to go get tested, and he tested positive. So my wife is upstairs isolating herself. And she had her test yesterday, and we're both scheduled for another test on Monday.
Okay. Well, I hope everything goes well. That's just
it's one of those things. I haven't left the house in a long time. When I go out, I make sure that I pick up like curbside. I wear a mask. I'm very careful. We have a very, very narrow or small circle of people that we interact with. And even when we do, we're also very careful, socially distance and all.
Yeah.
You take all those precautions, and then some guy that somebody works with who doesn't give a shit, who doesn't give 2 cents about this, who's not being careful, throws all of your plans out the window.
I think we can actually, that's been my biggest concern. We've spent all this time trying to ensure that we're not exposing ourselves, and then be right at the perceived end, because we have vaccines rolling out.
Yep.
Now we're trying to get to the point where it's like, okay, I'm on the hunt for a vaccine, because I'll be a little. No, I'm not exposing myself. Goodness gracious.
Yeah, well, it's Buckeye.
Yep, exactly.
J Flow.
Mr. J Flow, who's leaving me. Okay, no, I'm actually super happy. If you don't know Mr. J Flow, John Flores, who's a member of the Docs team here at Microsoft, bought a home back in Columbus, Ohio, where he's from. And he's going to be moving to Ohio. I'm kind of sad that he's moving away, but I totally understand that.
Okay, but he's still working with us.
Yeah, he's still working with us. That's one
So
of the great things.
We're
going to,
working
he's going to be able
remotely.
to work remote. This is awesome. This is one of the things that the pandemic's actually given to a lot of companies, is finding out, hey, we don't need to be in the office. We're as productive at home as we are in the office. I'm
worried about the economic effects of that, because like if I look at downtown Ottawa right now, it's a freaking ghost town. All the food trucks are not making money if they're out at all. All of the food courts have, because I went into the office 3 weeks ago just to pick up a package that was there for me. Of course, mask, double masked, and sanitizer like crazy. I bathe in that stuff now. Anyway.
I bet.
And the food court was closed, so all those people that are working there are now not. But if people or companies are not returning to in-office work, then that means that all this footprint that they have downtown is either going to be shrunk significantly or disappeared.
Well, we've got a couple of new followers to the channel here.
I was wondering what the heck that noise was. Okay, for those of you who are joining us, I imported producer Steve's or Steve the Auto Guy.
The audio guy, come on.
Sorry, I get this mixed up. Steve the Auto Guy.
Don't listen to Anthony.
I know. I imported his scene, so I'm not quite sure of what everything else is set up in here. I just did a quick make sure that it works, but that's the nice thing about this, is that we can share our setup and make them work.
Cool. Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, to finish that the economic story, once all downtowns realize that they don't need to, what's it going to do for the rest of the economy? Like the people like us who can work remotely are fine, but what about the people that depend on the daily commuters and people, the traffic downtown to actually make a living? That's going to be the sad part.
It is. I was actually listening to Windows Weekly with Paul, Mary Jo on the Twit network. And they were talking, I think it was the chief twit, Leo there. He was mentioning that Salesforce actually gave up several leases in downtown San Francisco. They have that one building that is their building, but they had several leases in other buildings. They've given that up during the pandemic.
Well, Trooper 8472, who was not at his post, just said in the chat that one of his clients just sold off a couple of car parks, and they're letting 2 or 3 floors go out of their lease.
Yeah, exactly.
That's ridiculous.
We're seeing a lot of that, but we're seeing that teams or companies can actually operate without having to be in the buildings. They're operating from a standpoint of being able to collaborate across a lot of different regions. It also allows people, like in this case, John is actually, he's moving back where he's got family and friends. And I mean, he had friends out here, but it's, it's different when you're close. Right now I've been a year and a half since I've seen my family in person.
Yep.
because they live in New York and I live here on the West Coast, and I'm not willing to fly until I'm vaccinated.
Yeah, well, and I understand that.
Oh
Plus,
yeah.
like John is going from a super expensive real estate environment, so I don't know whether or not he was renting or owning in Seattle. But I have friends that have moved that are right now in the process of moving from Ottawa to New Brunswick, and he's sold his house. Like he bought the house for like 400,000. I think it was 6 years ago.
Yeah.
And he sold it for 1.1 million. It's just nuts. But he bought a mansion for like 120,000 out in New Brunswick. So
nice.
he's going to be pocketing the rest. So
this happened and this was back in 2007. One of the persons I worked with in Microsoft Treasury. If this tells you how long ago this was, took a job at Continental Airlines in Houston. Back when Continental was an airline.
That was a while ago.
He sold his 2-bedroom condo in Bellevue at that time and was able to buy a 7-bedroom home and have money left over in Houston. So, yeah. The thing that's interesting, though, food trucks, when you mention food trucks, that's an interesting thing that's going on. I know of a neighborhood just south of Seattle, southeast of Seattle, and they are actually the like neighborhood association or whatever.
Yep.
Is inviting food trucks to come park at their park, and people can go to the park and get food. I mean, they've got some really nice food trucks that come by, and I'm like, I think I'm gonna go over and grab some, even though it's like a 12-mile drive for me.
There definitely have some places that have some really nice amenities, like I know New Brunswick and Nova Scotia. For me, there's a place I would love to move to. Real estate is affordable, but the nightlife, the restaurants, like it's the Maritime. So if you want like raw lobster rolls, you're actually getting fresh lobster rolls and not frozen crap.
Oh yeah. Oh. Sorry to do that. We've got a couple of these that have stacked up in a while.
Hey, should we say hello to the people in the chat room right now?
We should.
We've got Absolutely, AZ Cloud Elf, Kowski, PowerShell Dev. Actually, I'm reading this off of my little monitor, so it's a little smaller. Sam Goody, TRP 8472, which is not at his post, and Vizio MVP.
And it actually just updated for me. We also got KT Baker 77 and Sam Goody and Toddle.
Well, welcome everyone, and
everybody, and of course Mr. J Flow, one of our moderators. Except he went and got coffee.
So, he went to get coffee. Oh,
yeah.
Jay,
he said, "I'll be right back. I'm going to Starbucks across the street.
Can you get me one? Grande vanilla latte would be nice."
I'm already out, so I'm having to switch to my water bottle.
Yeah, my cup's empty, so and I don't have a coffee machine in my office, so it's either going to be water or the bottle of bourbon behind me. But it's a little early for bourbon.
Is it?
Well, I do have to work this afternoon. You don't.
Oh yes, yes. I informed Mr. Producer Pierre as we started our pre-show stuff. I was like, hey, yeah. You're lucky I'm even here. It's my day off. I took today off, so.
Yeah, and Absolutely has mentioned my Run Has Radio. Since we are podcasting or streaming, I just figured I'd give a shout out to our friends at Run As Radio. Wonderful podcast.
Mr. Campbell?
Mr. Campbell, yes,
Mr.
Campbell. I had a brain fart there for a second.
I know you did. I know that. I kind of saw the like, oh gosh.
The hamster fell off the wheel for a second there. No, it's this week I've been working and writing, and I'm writing some docs, and I'm writing some Learn modules, and I'm writing some articles for a product that's it's still under NDA, so I'm not going to say the product name. That is going GA in April, so I'm writing the announcements.
Oh, nice.
And I've been kind of trying to test the preview software, because if I'm going to talk about it, I'm talking about it from a perspective of an IT pro using it So, but I'm not testing in production in this particular case. So in a sandbox, and I had to figure out some stuff. And a couple of nights this week, it was like, okay, so you're working at it, and we're probably most of us are this type of personalities. We're IT pros. We're fix it. I need to fix it.
Mm-hmm.
And so you start working on something, and then you get a little bit of a tweak, and then they go, oh, how do I fix it? And then you start reading and you start researching, and you're watching video for somebody else and a blog from here and documentation and engineering, and you're pinging somebody in the middle of the night because the engineering team's in India, and so you're working on them, and the first thing you know is you look at the clock and it's 4:30 in the morning, and you go, oh, 6:30 is gonna come real quick. So I've had a couple of those nights this week, so I'm kind of glad it's Friday.
Yes, I understand that. TRP 8472. Even if we knew anything about the talks, we wouldn't be able to talk about it. But we know nothing. We're kept in. It's funny. I always make this comment, and people don't believe me. But I typically get my Microsoft news, no joke, from the outside news outlets.
Yep, Mary J's got better connections than we do.
We do. Oh gosh, yeah. It's amazing the connections all of the Microsoft media actually have inside the company, and having I always laugh because I understand kind of the role that the media plays, and then primarily became because I was I worked for the athletic department at Montana State University, my alma mater. I was helping them with computers. And quick reminder, everybody, can't post links in the chat. You will be timed out by the Stream Elements bot if you do that.
Yeah, no, the Visio MVP was just sharing that Microsoft has announced 500 new jobs coming to our Vancouver Development Center. So.
Yep. And if you want something posted in the channel, feel free to whisper it to
the Buckeye or ourselves,
or JFlow or Pierre.
Yeah.
So, and we can post those links. So, yeah. It's not that you have to ask. It's we have that blocked because we've had spammers come in and spam links and
spammers and bots, and you got to protect yourself.
Exactly.
Yep.
I think that's one of the things we're going to actually, here's a perfect thing for talking about testing and production. One of the things we're looking at as we have the subscription levels now in the Patch and Switch channel, how do we possibly utilize the subscription? Maybe subscribers will have the capability to post links without getting blocked by that. So that's something we're talking to. Patch and Switch is known for audio issues, but your lighting is really good. Well, thank you.
I was just reading that.
I don't know how to take that.
Yeah. So the lighting is really good, but what about the sound?
Hold on a second. Let's talk about sound because on a certain program this morning,
you got called out.
Not only did I get called out,
you got thrown under the bus.
Audio was horrible.
Well, okay, on Richard's Rick for everybody. For some reason, I think myself and his mom are the only ones that call him Richard. In any case, he's had a little bit of an issue this week. His main box, the motherboard fried. Like over 2.5 weeks ago, I think he put a new M2 drive in it, and it was working fine. And then he was installing some Visual Studio add-on or something, and he needed to reboot for the update. And when he rebooted, it never came back up. It wouldn't even post.
Oh man!
So it's nothing he did specifically, but. So now he's had to bring it back, so he has to send the motherboard back to Asus to get a new one. And this pandemic and the shortage that we have, we're not sure whether or not he's going to get a new one. Exactly. But he had in a hurry switched to his old Surface Book 2 that I think he hasn't used in a while, and actually plug his mic, his camera, his teleprompter, like
goodness
everything
gracious.
into
Yeah.
this new machine in a hurry. So I don't blame him too much for the sound effects this morning. But he was wearing a suit. Did you see that?
I know he's wearing a suit. And yes, Wireless Life, yes, you did apologize on air. Thank you very much. No, I can take that joke. We've had a lot of audio issues back when I was trying to run everything. And that kind of can lead us into some of the conversations we've had about some of the gear. For a long time, I was trying to do everything on computer with audio channel, digital audio channel software, if you will. And that's how I would try and route the audio. And it caused a lot of issues. It caused delays, especially when my CPU was getting maxed out. And I had an older machine. It was an i5, which at the time was a great machine, but I was running 97, 98% CPU.
Speaking of sound and speaking of lag, I know last week or 2 weeks ago, we had a bit of an issue with the sound lagging. So we looked more like a translated Chinese movie. Hello.
Yes.
Like
yes.
But today, where I'm trying again, testing in production.
Of course.
And let me see if I can switch to my desktop here.
Wahaha.
So now for everybody, the OBS that you see here is not the OBS we're using to broadcast, because I don't want to switch things too much while we're in production. This is a second machine, but it's got the exact same setting in terms of our scenes. And what I've done is for our NDI, if I go to my properties, and right now it's not available because it's not connected to NDI. But if I was going to add an NDI source, and of course, because it's not on my machine, so I'm going to actually have to share my machine. This is what I was trying to avoid. But if we go to JShock, for example, and I look at the properties of his NDI, we are actually using the low latency mode, which is in experimental mode, meaning not necessarily going to work all the time.
Yes, it's not.
All right, so let me change back to here.
Yeah.
So at least we now know that we are trying to address some of the latency between the sound and the video because of some of the intricacies that NDI and the networking does. And all of my machines are now been set hard-coded to gigabit Ethernet connected to, like I've kind of simplified a little bit of my networking. So let us know if there are any lag between our voices and our mouths.
Exactly. AC Cloud Elf, I know I answered your question in the chat, but he asked if we bought or created our overlays. Actually, we bought an overlay setup that came from a company we not sponsored. Actually, we could become affiliates.
Nerd or die.
Nerd or Die is the name of the company, and they had some really nice overlays and whole kits, and you could buy them. And the great thing about it, you could buy them at different levels. You could get in very inexpensive, and you can just have the basic overlays. You pay a little bit more and get more advanced overlays, or you could do what I did, where you can buy it with the overlays and all the source files. So we could actually modify all these ourselves and add to it.
But when we're looking at things like that in scenes, and last time I did mention that I'm more of I prefer to be a bit more on the simple side. I don't like too many overlays. On-screen pop-ups for subscriptions and stuff. I try to keep that at an absolute minimum. So for AZ updates, for example, depending on when we stream, if we stream on StreamYard, which is great because like this morning we had some thunderstorms here, and just as we were about to go live, the power at my house went off. So
Oh,
it was
boy.
just long enough for all of my machines to turn off, the router, the everything, my modem, my Ethernet, my internet modem went down. Like, so I had to reboot, so it took like a minute to come back up. But because we were on StreamYard, Anthony could just switch the scenes and actually start the broadcast.
Yeah, that does make it a lot easier. For example, when patch and switch, I lose my internet, or if I have an internet issue or power issue, we are kind of at a standstill for that day.
Yeah, and considering it's happened a couple times this morning, just a note to everyone that if we go dark, that means that my power's
You
gone
lost
out.
power. We had Fuel Snobble says audio delay seems easy to fix. Learn to be a ventriloquist and move your lips with a slight delay. I
Except
can barely move my lips now.
except that typically the lips the delays the other way around, so you'd have to move your lips in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway.
Yeah, that's difficult to try and do. Absolutely had 3 power cuts this morning. Each time the bedroom light turned on. Ouch. Busy on the VP talking about the heavy rain is finally taking care of the snowbanks. Well, that's wonderful.
Yeah, well, it's still 4 feet tall in my front yard.
And Fuel Snobble, we're not. You got some good solutions. Not trying to shoot them down. We're just trying to explain the situation.
Anyways, should we get into this week's topics?
Yes, let's jump into the topics.
By
the way,
yeah,
I do have to say one thing. I do keep a window with our Twitch stream manager open over here, and I have to just say I don't know how you've got your setup done, and I've got to talk with you probably, and we'll take a look at it here. We're getting 4,700 kilobits per second right now on our bit rate with 30 frames per second. So
I know, and
nice
I normally I set mine in my settings to go to 6,000, so 5,500 to 6,000, depending if it's Twitch or if it's YouTube, and then from there it starts throttling back based on the bandwidth that's available. I do have a 1 gig symmetric connection, so 1 gig up, 1 gig down, so I got fiber to the house.
Yep.
So
I've got
a
1 gig up, 1 gig down as well, fiber. So
yeah, so it
nice.
does work out pretty good in terms of I don't get too much lag when I broadcast. Anyway, so the topics that we're looking at this week are suggestions from the audience from 2 weeks ago.
Correct.
Number 1, we've got scene creation and scene organization, because creation, there's like a gazillion good videos on YouTube on how to create scenes. And of course, if you go to Nerd or Die, if you go to owned.tv, those streaming packages are replicating like bunnies. And,
yeah, exactly.
And so you can buy one, and you can buy them that are pretty nice for like less than $20. So if you're getting into streaming, you can either make your own. I've done a lot in terms of like the camera frames through After Effects. There's a lot of good tutorials out there as well, and you just put like a graphics in the background. You size up your video feed, and then you put this After Effect frame around it that you can make it look like it's got this rotating color, or a little bit like what we're having now. Yeah. Or you can spend $20 and go get a basic package that has most of what you need.
Exactly.
So we're not really gonna deep dive into creating those, because really there's 100 people out there that have done much better job than we could. But I'm just going to give you a little bit of the way I approach scene organization and scene creation.
I think it's a great idea. Let's see it.
All right. I'm just trying to make sure that I'm not missing anything in the chat, and so far we're good.
Yes, JFlow, stupid Cabletown internet. Yes, we understand.
So now, JFlow, have you checked where you're moving, whether or not you can get a decent connection? Because that's always when I'm looking at real estate, I'm always thinking, oh, this is a really nice house and really nice piece of property, but it's so far out of town, I might not get more than like 10.
Yeah. SpaceLink might change that. By the way, did you hear the news from last night from the SpaceLink folks?
No.
One of their vehicles re-entered in the Pacific Northwest and made a huge light show over the Pacific Northwest.
Oops.
Lots of videos caught of these pieces of spacecraft falling through the sky on fire.
So does that mean they lost one of their satellite, or?
I think one of their delivery vehicles re-entered, but re-entered at the wrong spot over the Pacific Northwest instead of over the ocean.
Aren't they supposed to be able to like land back on the solid ground without destroying themselves?
That's the launching vehicles.
Oh, okay.
This was a delivery vehicle after it had separated.
Ah.
Yeah.
Oh,
There's a second stage booster that would normally have been deorbited shortly after the launch.
Ah.
That's according to Aspen Forrester. Thank you very much. TRP 8472. There's an issue how long the life of the satellites have. Plus, bad weather can degrade the signal. Of course, satellite can be impacted by weather.
I know. I used to be on satellite TV, and every time there was a snowstorm, I'd have to go outside with a broom, tape the broom to another broom because it was too high for me to, and then go clean the snow off my satellite dish.
It was worse for my parents because I got them. I worked for a wireless internet company in Montana, and it was great when there was no snow. But man, when there was snow, you had to go out and wipe off the antenna. The same thing, just like the satellite dish.
Yeah, and I, for that SpaceLink, I did find, or Starlink, I can't remember what it's called. I saw a video of a guy in Alberta that decided to test it. He was part of the first ones that were beta testing. So he mounted the thing on his roof, and it kind of automatically angles itself and finds its satellite and connects to it. The dish itself has got a bit of a heating element in it to melt the snow.
Oh, so, interesting.
Yeah, apparently. But when the snow is melting, it created water. Water would run to the edge and then start dripping. But in the Canadian climate, dripping water doesn't take very long before it makes a long icicle. So it created this 1-inch thick icicle that basically locked the dish to the ground or to the roof of his house. So now
it couldn't move anymore.
It couldn't move anymore. So now when the satellites moved to a different location, because they're not exactly stationary, it couldn't readjust, and he lost all of his connection. So he had to go up on the roof, break the ice, but by then the little motor that changes it had either spun its gears or burnt the motor, so it wouldn't readjust, so he had to send it back. First night he had it on the roof, he said.
Oh, yikes. Yeah. So let's get back into what we wanted to talk about.
We're dipping into the patch and switch territory now, where we just ramble on for an hour.
Exactly. That seems to be what we do best on this channel.
So first step, we're going to talk about scenes, creation, and the second portion, Jared is going to talk to us about transitions.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
So let's jump into my desktop.
Let's do that.
So
jump in.
If you can see right now on my desktop, it's pretty straightforward in terms of scene. I don't have a lot of scenes. I'll want to highlight the bottom 4 scenes that I have. So I've got the base Pierre, the base Jared, the my cam, which is my Sony, and my Acer, which is my second monitor. So right now the scene is using, because I'm sharing. If I go to my desktop, the scene that I'm sharing here is got my cam Acer. I always set all of my video and desktop sharing as separate scenes. And the reason is, if I go, for example, to my Sony here and my Elgato card, and I go to the properties, or more specifically to the filter, I can add a color correction. I can add a green screen effect. I can add one thing that I do typically do for everything is I add a scaling and aspect ratio. So I will lock a feed to, let's say, 1920 by 1080. That way, because if you're on Teams or on anything NDI on Skype or anything like that over the wire, if your internet gets a little congested, the client itself will automatically switch the resolution. So you could go for like from 1920 by 1080 to 720p, and then back to 1080, and then back down to 720. So by doing the locking at a 1080p resolution, when the feed drops, it'll upscale at my client and make sure that the size that it takes on my scene is always the same. So I do that. Nice. So I do the scaling and aspect ratio in OBS. That's in OBS, of course, OBS Studio. Yes. If you're using anything else, there's probably something similar that you can do. If you're using StreamYard or any kind of like web client, then you don't really have to worry about this too much. And of course, I've got my Acer here, which is just a shared desktop. So I've got one of my monitors in my setup is, even though it supports a higher resolution, is always set to 1080. And the reason is when you're sharing it, if I shared, let's say, my 46-inch 4K monitor, and somebody's trying to view the screen with me on a laptop screen, for example, then the font gets so small because it has to compress all of that space and that resolution into a very small place, then you can't see anything. So anytime I'm sharing content in a team meeting or on OBS or in any other medium, I always share the screen that's set to 1080. So I'll have to move stuff into it, but share that one. That way I don't end up with and problems like saying, I can't see your screen, or it's too small, can you grow the font, and so that kind of stuff. And typically I also try to stay away from dark mode. I find that on screen a light mode is easier to see, especially in a presentation. There are different, don't come at me on that. I know it's a personal preference, and some people will say, no, darker is easier to see, but anyway. So I do set all of my feed as separate scenes, and then if I go to the a scene like we had before where it's the both of us together,
right?
I add a scene inside my scene. And that way, if I change it once, so if I change my color coding, for example, and then my gamma to give myself maybe a little bit more of a tan that I normally have.
I think you need a little bit more of a tan, by the way. Haven't seen much sun.
Yeah, I'm not going to go and change the color in. Well, maybe I could do this in production. So if I go here and apply,
testing in production, folks.
I'm testing in production. So all right, so I'm going to change some color correction here, and let's say, oh, there we go. Is that a little better? A little bit more contrast.
You're a lot darker. Yes, you're a lot darker.
And then pump up the brightness a little bit so that to compensate. There we go.
But the great thing is now show the two shot.
So now that change has gone everywhere.
Exactly. It's played out into all the scenes that he has that shot in, which is great.
Yeah. So that's the main reason I do this is and to avoid it's sometimes more apparent if you're doing it with sound. Where if you have the same sound in your sources, if you add your sound source in every scene, that little mic thing here might be sorry, I'm looking at the wrong monitor here. If you update the your sound levels on one scene, it might be slightly different than the other scene. So as you change scenes, all of a sudden your mic is hot and then your mic is low. Then your mic is hot and then your mic is low. What I do for this is I always only have one mic source, which is the built-in mic and auxiliary source. And in my settings under audio, I set my mic, and right now it's saying, hey, I can't find your Go XLR because it's not on that machine. I'm remoted into a second machine to avoid the OBS inception. But normally I would set it here, and if I have other sources, I would set them for audio 2, audio 3, and audio 4 instead of adding them in every scene. What I do add into specific scenes is, let's say, when we had our countdown and we had that lovely, and somebody actually mentioned in the in the chat that the score was pretty. It's actually epic. A pretty powerful, epic score.
Yes.
That is set into, and right now they're set to. So if I unmark it, so that one is set in the scene because it's only in that scene.
Right.
So that's how I organize my sound and organize my video feeds, all separate. But it makes managing them from scene to scene to scene much easier. Then, am I in the right place? Yeah. Then, if I look at my other scenes, I typically have at the top the management scene. So the countdown, the start, the end, the we'll be right back, like stuff that I'm not going to go all the time, but I want to be able to find them quickly should something happen. So I could, if let's say Jared falls off of his chair and I need to block it.
That's when you go to the close-up of Jared falling down, right?
Yeah, but then I would go, be back soon, just to make sure you're okay, and then go back to the live scene of you with your feet up. Anyway, so I want to have those at the top of my list, so I move them to the top, and then I insert empty scenes with like the number and a line, or just a bunch of dashes, just to give you give myself some visual references as to where my management scenes are, where my actual broadcastings are, and where my source scenes are. And this is not a very complicated broadcast. Like, we don't have a lot of like chat included in the broadcast or in-game playing, which would add a lot more scenes. But then that works for me, and it's pretty, once you set it up from the scratch, it makes it a lot easier going forward to add new stuff and manage and switch from one to the other without affecting the rest of the stuff too much. Plus, now it's easy for me to just say on my Stream Deck to actually just assign, because really on my Stream Deck I only need 4 or 5 buttons. One is the 1+1 talking heads with desktop, which is my desktop. The other one is the shared desktop, which is what Jared is sharing across the wire. So instead of having to turn on and off a feed within a scene, I just duplicate the scene and then change that one. So it makes it a little cleaner. I don't have to, I try normally not to test things in production. This broadcast is a little different,
of course,
but it's a way that works really well. And then I can set just those 3 scenes on my Stream Deck or whatever automation. I can assign them to keystrokes, so I don't have to reach for the monitor, because that's the other thing is sometimes you're looking at that and you go, okay, well, it's hard. One thing you can do for this is under view, you can go to multi-view and full screen, where it gives you a layout of all your scenes, and you're seeing them all live. So you just use your mouse and you basically click the one that you want to switch to. and without having to worry about. And so the top right is the one that's actually live. Everybody else, the top left is the preview, and then all our scenes are underneath. So if you don't want to, if you don't have a Stream Deck and you don't want to bother with a keyboard shortcut, you can set that up and set it close on a monitor that's close enough to the camera, where you don't have to get your eyes off of it, and it's very easy to switch from one scene to another.
And that's a good way to do it for sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
What else do I want to say about scenes? Oh yeah. I eyed all of the unwanted sounds, because
the sound channel.
Yeah, the sound channels, because I don't want to have to, if I'm a little hot or somebody mentions that we're low, in my case, I can adjust with the faders on my my soundboards, but not everybody has that. But normally you would have to go in here and say, okay, so change that one, and you think you're changing one, but you're changing the wrong one. I just hide those. They're not removed. They're just hidden. That way, when I look at my interface during a broadcast, I know exactly which one to adjust and which one is live. Yep.
No, that makes a lot of sense.
So,
especially if you're using OBS as your sound interface device.
That's right. And of course, we mentioned 2 weeks ago that you and I are running Go XLRs, like the full ones, which has the motorized fader and the sound effects that we can talk to. So now I sound like Richard did this morning.
Copy that. Over.
Yeah, so we have that and the soundboards and everything. However,
by the way, I wonder if Joey likes our soundboards.
No. But and I mentioned too, I do have a separate fader board, which is just a MIDI controller that I'm associated, like Edge and Chrome and VLC and Spotify to different faders. I can
we need to talk about that next time.
Yeah, I can do. We could do.
Seriously interested in this,
because that was the Go XLR is like what, $300?
It is, yes.
There's the Go XLR Mini, which is just the faders, but they're not motorized. Really doesn't make it.
But that's it's not necessary.
They both come with the same software, which is the awesome part of that. The MIDI controller and the software I'm using for it. The MIDI controller, I got it on the equivalent of Craigslist on Kijiji here in Ottawa for like $40, and the software is free.
Excellent.
So,
like I said,
very
let's
easy.
plan to put that on our next show, was to talk about how you got that set up.
Yeah. All right. So when we're looking at scenes, that's basically it. You can get as fancy as you want within a scene. One of the things about in the scenes is, if you're looking at like right now, if you can see, all of my scenes are locked. So once I go to broadcast, I lock all my scenes so I avoid grabbing something and moving it during a broadcast.
Yeah.
But if I unlock those, now you can see that I can actually grab something and move it.
Which mess something up.
Which will mess something up. But also, if it's, for example, your feed, so if you're right now on the broadcast, you're upper right for me. So if I look at JShock here, and I unlock you, and I go into the transform, I edit the transform, and it says no bounds.
Yep.
What it means is it's not bound to any or area of our screen. Which means if your resolution changes for some reason, which is why I do the aspect ratio filter, but if I miss one or something happens, you will notice that sometimes on some streams, all of a sudden the image has just shifted. It's moved out of where it's supposed to be.
Yes.
So I basically set that one, and I prefer to set it to inner scale, so it sets a box on my screen where it's going to lock things in, and then I set the size to what I need it to be. And once I'm done, at the bottom it shows the bounding box size, and I can crop it or move it, but it locks it in place at that location. So now if I close it, I've edited my transform. It's set an inner bounds, so my feed is within the bounds of that box that I've just created. So regardless what happens to the feed, that image or whatever I've inserted in that box or scene is not going to move around. And you'll see that's on the countdown, which I didn't do. I just imported that one. You see that our social links are off center.
Yeah.
Because those ones are not. Sorry, ours are not got any transform, so there are no bounds. So when I imported it, because there were no bounds, I just dropped it in the middle of the screen.
Exactly.
And it happens.
It didn't drop it in the middle. It dropped it off center, which is
off center, which I can't move right now because it's locked. Yeah. Normally, you wouldn't do that in the middle of a broadcast.
Exactly.
And that's it. That is the way I do scene, not creation, but scene organization. For scene creation, I don't know if we want to get into this. It's more of a personal.
It is very personal.
Yeah,
for sure.
So, what does the chat think about this? Is there any? I wasn't really paying attention.
We didn't. We probably had a lot of people just listening in to once we got into that. We had Buckeye J Flow obviously says when he gets to Ohio, he's gonna need to get his setup finished. We need to talk some gear, of course. And that's when I've said, maybe we do this old streaming studio and help him do some remodeling.
He who dies with the most toys wins.
Exactly. Fuel Schnabel said, "Oh, that was about the Joey and the soundboards." So, TRP 8472, really nice touch, Pierre. Seems many people. This is when you were talking about having the monitor locked in at 1080.
Yeah,
and that's a really nice touch. I have seen that. I have some of my teammates. They'll share their 4K monitor, and I'm like,
what the hell? Yeah. It's not easy. You're looking at it and you go, what the? Exactly. I can't read this. Just send me the file because I can't read it on the screen.
Exactly. Well, one of the things we can actually talk about is kind of the transition stuff. I can actually show how I have. So Pierre talked about how he has it so that he only has a couple of buttons on his Stream Deck. I actually have kind of flipped a little bit, and I heavily use my Stream Deck, both for my personal, for testing and production, as well as for patch and switch, as well as for my personal streaming. I've done a lot to try and automate as much as I can through these buttons. We're getting an echo, I'm told.
Yes, we are, because I added this scene about 3 minutes before broadcast, and I forgot to change to follow my own advice. And the NDI, because the NDI also comes with an audio signal that you have to mute, that I had forgotten to mute. So you were getting my feed and Jared's feed, which is a little delayed because it's across the wire for sound at the same time. So now that has been fixed and it's hidden.
And that's actually something that happened to me a couple of times in patch and switch. And a lot of people are like, oh God, there's an echo. The echo was caused because I had not removed that extra audio channel in the NDI. And as a matter of fact, the first time we used NDI, I had such bad echoing. Well, the reason why the echoing was happening was I thought every NDI was the audio, like for Rick, I had Rick's audio, and for Joey, I had Joey's audio. Nope, they were the same audio on both channels. So it's like, ooh, ouch.
It's the same audio on both channels, but because one is the NDI, you're getting both Rick, Joey, and yourself.
Exactly.
And then on the other one, on the Go XLR, you're getting the same thing.
Exactly, and that's why, and they were just offset by a couple of like
a couple millisecond is enough to make it sound echoey.
Oh yeah. So here I have my configuration for testing and production for a Stream Deck, and you'll see here I have set up basically a couple of scenes and a couple of but I have a whole bunch of automation set up, and we'll actually go in and take a look at this. So what I have done is I've actually set up to where I can push a button when I'm ready to get this get the show started.
Yep.
get this started. It sets the music off, and then it sets the scene to the countdown. And what I also do is have it, because there is a connectivity between the Go XLR and the Stream Decks.
Yep.
I have it shut off certain routing in the Go XLR. So, oops, trying to get, now the Stream Deck software is not responding. Oh, great.
In production.
Thanks, teams.
But yeah, that's a great point, because at the beginning we have the countdown and there's music playing, but we are still discussing what's going to be happening during this, so we have to basically mute it. And in my case, because I have not yet set that up on my the Stream Deck, that's why when the first few seconds of the show we didn't have, because I had muted our mics to the stream and forgot to undo it. But you're automating it, so you don't have to worry about that.
Exactly. And that's what I did, was the automation. There we go. Should be back. Excellent. Yep. We're back. So we'll go back in here. So I have this set up to then, like I said, mute. So what I do is I shut off my mic, I shut off the chat, and then I enable the music channel. So I have the music coming from OBS through my music channel. And then I give it a delay, and then I go live. And that actually, initializes the live stream out to the internet. And then when we're getting close, and I kind of have it timed at an appropriate time, I start the recorders, and then I start the epic music. Now, see, for me, I know Pierre was able to, he just repeated that thing. That's actually straight into the song. So I normally play a royalty-free Spotify list. I think the gentleman's name is Harris Heller.
Yep. Stream Beats. Stream Beats.
Yep, the Stream Beats.
Fantastic.
He's got several different playlists that are just fantastic. I actually started listening to it all the time, not just when I'm playing. And so what I do there is then I have this set up to where it then starts the music in the it enables those sources, which then starts the music. Then I wait for the riser. I actually have timed out where the riser is. It's 95 seconds. Yep. And then that's when I actually switch to stream starting. And then I bring the mics hot. I wait for a second, and then I bring in the hosts. And so I have this all automated. I push that one button, and it does the last, if you will, 2 minutes of the countdown.
And I did that. I have that set up for when I'm running AZ Update locally, where I will hit the button, it starts the broadcast, starts the music, mutes the host, so we can still keep talking, but it's just not going out the stream. And then it starts the video, and when the video, which is the bumper at the beginning, as we call it, when the bumper ends, switches to the right scene, and then lights up the mics again.
Exactly.
I haven't done that for this show yet, but considering that we're now going to be doing this on a regular basis, I might just have to spend the time and do it.
Or I could export mine, and you can use that as a starting point.
True.
That's at least helpful.
Yes. Speaking of transition, you were going to talk to us about transition.
Yes. Well, we were going to, I wanted to show this real quick, because all these set up the different transitions. So if I change scenes, for example, I go to our 2-shot, or I go to show and tell. That's what I call this shot that we have right here. You guys can't see it, so I'm going to switch over to my OBS view, and can actually see.
Yeah, we can see it now.
And when I switch to the 2-shot, you can see it actually has these little stingers. And what I've done is down here in my configuration, we have these scene transitions. You can actually set up stingers. What are basically the changes? And in this case, we're actually using a video stinger. And so if we preview, you can see it goes from A to B. And we can set all of the, when it actually switches. So you can have a point, and this is in the overlays we got. There's a point where everything's hidden. That's the point we want it to switch from A to B.
Yep.
And that's transition point. And we have some audio, and I think that's the problem, is the audio faders is the problem with the audio that we get with patch and switch, because it has this sort of audio fade style, and you have to use one of these settings. So I'm trying to figure out how we can get rid of those settings while we do a transition.
Yeah. Well, you'll have to test setting your Go XLR, because right now I see it set up in your scene.
Yep.
Versus setting it up in your audio settings under the built-in mic and auxiliary.
I have tried that before and have had issues with that. That's why it's here. I can also see it, so I know when stuff is running. Yes. So we have there's some testing to be done, and we'll do some testing in production. So, but they're easy, and I've actually set up a couple of different stingers. I have what I call mute stinger, which has no audio, and then I have a stinger, which actually sends audio back. It's like a zwoosh kind of noise. Yeah, exactly. And if you keep changing views, it gets annoying. So that's why I only put it in a couple of different views.
And personally, I prefer in most cases to just use the fade transition.
Yes.
I find it's like not PowerShell, sorry. PowerPoint builds and PowerPoint transition.
Yeah.
Like some people transition, and then they put transition and builds on everything. And when I get a deck from somebody, the first thing I do is I select all, remove all transitions.
Exactly. I do too.
So sure. give me a very sweet, short fade to black and black to image in like less than half a second, just so it's not too sharp. And that typically is good enough for me, because if you switch a lot between scene to scene, it becomes really annoying to see that stinger transition every time. Oh yeah, for sure. That's why I think it's a better spot. You use it once in a while. Yeah.
So, they can be overwhelming at times.
Yes.
So that's the scene transitions. Actually, very easy. And yes, you can create your own stingers. You can even do your own fades to color. You can't see it because it drops off or the list isn't showing up on the screen. But you can do. I could do a fade to color. Or I can do the crossfade or just a straight cut. By the way, a cut just goes.
And if you don't want to spend the money for pre-made ones, if you go on YouTube and you look for stinger transition After Effects tutorials, a lot of them will actually, in the show notes, will give you access to free samples that you can start with. And in a lot of cases, those free samples are good. They're just like a flare effect that goes in and out, and then you're done. Exactly. You can start with that.
Aspen Forrester really brings up a good idea. For the length of the stinger, if you do a scene change, but then you do another scene change real quick, it'll mess up those stingers. You have to let the stinger finish.
Yeah, if you change the scene before it's finished, it basically interrupts the stinger. So right now, if I go back to our host 1 and host 2 scene and I let it finish, you see the entire thing. If I switch back and then switch again, it interrupts it
Yep, exactly. And so that's why when you're using those transitions, you should know how long they are, especially when you're producing them, to flip between them.
Yeah.
But that's good. Thank you for pointing that out, Aspen Forrester. Thank
Yes.
you. That's, I think we're at 10 o'clock, so I think we should let these folks go.
Well, before they go,
Uh-huh.
what other topics would they like us to research and bring up for our in the fourth night?
I saw PowerShell Dev wanted us to cover lighting.
Oh, okay.
So I think we should do that. We covered our equipment briefly, but let's go into depth about how we do our lighting.
Yep.
Let's definitely talk about your soundboard for sure. How a person could get into that. And any other topics that folks can think of? We'll let the chat room catch up with us here.
Yeah, and by the way, I'm not ignoring you. I'm actually.
You're writing it down. See,
I am writing it down. I am so old school that I still use pencil and paper.
Pencil and paper. Charcoal. I'm surprised you don't have like a tablet.
Well, I got a chisel, a hammer, and a stone tablet outside. That's for my permanent records.
Oh, okay.
Because it can't.
And that's
can't
for
be...
disaster recovery.
Exactly. It's in my permanent records that can't be erased. So that's
the cold storage.
That's my cold storage. Very cold storage because I can leave it outside.
Exactly.
Hazy Cloud Health says yes. Soundboard integration. We can definitely take a look at that.
Okay.
There are so many options for soundboard integration. There are some virtual ones with, and I think you have that software. I don't. Which is
virtual sound cables.
The sound cables or virtual cables, and what's the other one?
There was a couple. I can dig them up. Because I've stopped using them. I've uninstalled. Because I never installed them in the new machine.
Yes.
I never installed on the old machine.
Which do almost the same. It's just I like a physical fader to just be able to adjust.
It's not just the physical fader for me. It's also the XLR connection for the microphones.
Well, mainly for me, it's to avoid having, because when I start my stream normally, I've got like right now I see you on this screen, so I'm talking to you. I'm looking at you right in the eyes, but it looks like I'm looking at or there's a very, very slight if I'm looking at the lens or if I'm looking at you, because I want to see your reaction. I want to see if I'm getting to you. And I've got my shared on one screen, and I've got my monitor on the screen, so I actually see what the audience is seeing. And I do have Twitch on a different location, so I can see our bit rate, the monitor view, make sure that I keep an eye on the chat.
Is that something people would like to hear us talk about, how we kind of arrange our screens as well as we're in the middle of a broadcast? We could talk about that. Yeah,
we could talk about that. Okay, so screen setup.
And we may have a screen setup might be for the following episode. Who knows?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We're just collecting topics here. Exactly. But once those are set, I tend not to move them because now I know I can look here and I can look there and very quickly, and it doesn't look like we're not getting this view all the time.
Yes.
Anyway, and those virtual cables, you actually have to switch apps because they're on screen.
Yes.
So unless you can lock them to a specific screen somewhere, for me, I can just right now, if I could go to my mic and I can lower my mic.
You turn down your mic, dude.
Because now I can bring it back up, and I don't have to look on my screen where my fader is. I know it's right there, and it's got a really nice little logo of a microphone above it.
Exactly.
Just personal preference.
Yep. Well, I've put where people can get a hold of us in the chat channel on Twitter. That's, I think, the best place to get us. Either that or the IT Ops Talk Discord is another great place to chat with us, for sure.
Yes, the IT Ops Talk. And if you're not a member, the permanent invitation is IT Ops Talks -Discord, aka.ms/IT Ops Talk -Discord. Oh,
yeah, and Fuel. Yeah, we have spent some time getting setups that are scalable for future, for sure.
Yep. Now the only thing we have to figure out is redundancy within each of our to make sure that if power, we need a separate power feed from the outside. I'm looking at a Generac natural gas generator and a multiple internet connection.
I have 2 UPSs I have to install in my office here, one for my computer and one for the network in the office. So
I'm just joking. I'm not spending that kind of money on something
I have 2 UPSs in my
I might
gotta get installed.
I might get one. Well, actually, I might get 2. A very small one for my internet router,
Yep.
And one for my PC to at least give me the chance to tell everyone, power's out. I'm about to go dark.
Offline.
See ya. All right.
All right. I think the question has to be asked.
Ballsy.
Oh.
Ballsy. All right, Twinkle, tell us what's your exit strategy.
So what is our exit strategy today?
My our exit strategy is basically to hit the end stream scene and to go back to our day jobs. Because I think my boss might be. Is my boss in the chat room?
He's not watching. He's not watching. I've been looking.
He's not. He's not. Unless he's got some other identity.
Exactly.
So let's.
Gotta go. Feel snubble. Love it. Love it. Love it.
All right, so let's go by. Let's go say goodnight to, or good night. Can you tell I want to go for a nap?
I do.
All right, let's say hello to and goodbye to our wonderful audience. Thank you for staying with us for over an hour now.
Mm-hmm.
Thank God we're not on Learn TV. We'd have got cut off 10 minutes ago.
Thank goodness.
So we've got with us Buckeye J Flow, and we've got absolutely Aspen Forrester, A10, AZ Cloud Health, Commander Root, Feet. I'm not sure. I'm not a big feet guy. I kind of have no. Okay.
Yeah.
Full nabels.
Full snubble. Full snubble.
Oh, full snubble. Okay. I'm French. I put the emphasis on the wrong syllable all the time.
Exactly.
If Delara, Janelle, Kowski, Toddled, TRP 8472, which is going back as it's supposed, and Vizio MVP. I know.
Thanks to everyone who showed up today. Have a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you in 2 weeks. Be sure to catch AZ Update on Friday at what time?
It's 10 a.m. Eastern time. So
7 a.m. Pacific.
Yeah, you're probably gonna be. Oh, you're always on. I don't like. You must be
always there.
You must be an early riser. If I don't have to be up at 7 a.m., I am not.
Yeah.
All right.
Fuel, what's the music, man?
I don't even know if I have the music set up, but we'll see. I haven't actually tried this scene yet, so see you online, everyone.
Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
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 No, there's no music on that one.
Oops.
Oh, wait. I don't know. I don't think so. I'll have to set that up for next week. All right. Bye, everyone.